Hello, my dear friend, and welcome to the Spiritually Engineered Podcast, where we take a deep dive into the human experience from a spiritual perspective. Come on in, and I invite you to stay. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Hey, my dear friend, and welcome to another episode where we're going to dive into the spiritual foundations. And we're going to touch on foundation number 2. I am here to learn and grow. All right. So in continuing this kind of a series, at least from my perspective, I feel like this is something that's at least this particular concept here is near and dear to me in a lot of ways. Kind of bringing you back to the big picture here for a moment, connecting with it. We're all spiritual beings having a human experience. And we are here on this planet Earth, that's like a school, a giant university, if you will. This big blue round campus that we all occupy for a certain period of time. And we're all passing through here, just like if we would have just been, going through, like, think about like traditional school sense, your elementary, middle school, high school. Only except here, it's life school. And class is always in session as long as we're here. And I think that's something, and that learning and growing, that process is something that's an innate desire as a soul. It's something that we crave. The word maybe you probably heard before, expansion or evolution in consciousness. But there's this innate desire that we have within ourselves, each and every single one of us, to just expand, to evolve, to elevate. And in a lot of ways, while we're here, and actually part of the reason why we're here, and this also ties in our spirit guides, angels, masters, whatever you want to call them, are here with us, accompanying us on our journey, is liberating ourselves from the bondage of ignorance. So just to begin to give you the big picture of this concept here, I am here to learn and grow. And I think the process of learning and growing, trial and error, is what's helped contribute to us helping to better understand the world. From the simple perspective of, if you put your hand on the stove when it's hot, it hurts, pain. Okay, maybe not do it again. Generally, most people, would. I say generally most. But there's some people that will repeatedly touch their hand on the stove, and you can at this point take this metaphorically here, figuratively speaking, and it's like, ow! Again, it's just like kind of, it's like that hitting your head on the wall again and again, right? And that's where that reality that some people can just like, okay, all right, let me let me learn from my mistakes and apply it, and then other people, they kind of still repeating the same thing or doing the same thing over and over again, the same mistake, whatever, and it's just you're banging the head against the same wall, and it's just like, what gives? Why is that? And I think with that, something that I think is very important to understand is that everybody's at a different place in their own life curriculum and their own growth process. There's a huge spectrum in terms of awareness and how much people and how much the work that people have done to help undo programmings, conditionings, and things like that extends so far back for most of us, for all of us, is like our, I would say for most of us is like our first 7 years, and I think for a good chunk of many others as well is beyond our current lifetime as well. But not to get too much into that aspect, the past lives, reincarnation type of stuff, but still that can play a role and can play a huge factor in the subtleties that can affect us. We're thinking about the subconscious mind, all the depth that's in there that's untapped, that affects us in the conscious world, if you will. But regardless, of of what's going on with people, I think it's important that to have that understanding that, again, everybody's here at different places. You can't expect people to know everything or to do a certain way, you know. And this is like one of the things you kind of have to take a step back, because you could be used to carrying yourself a certain way, like for example, like my cleaning job, for example. Like I have colleagues, always, a whole spectrum of things. I'll hear things from like criticism to like complaints to, and sometimes what will come up is like communications and how people do things, taking care of equipments and stuff like that, which I understand. I can understand um, a lot of the feedback. But for me, I want to address the thought pattern here when I say this. Like, well, it's true that this person's, could have done better, this, that, but they're only going the best that they know how. If they knew better, they would do better. If you and I knew better, we would do better. So why would we be hard on ourselves? And especially also looking at our past selves and what we do things. I mean, I know I've gotten into some false bike accidents and stuff like that. And I look back, I'm like, why did I do this? Um, as a matter of fact, one huge example for myself is this is an extreme example here, but again, this could tie into any other. It can be big or small, it doesn't matter. But for me, one of my big things that I had to learn from was when I was riding my bike and I was doing this race, alley cat. It's like a street race. That's like a scavenger hunt, and we go to different checkpoints. Well, we'll have racers start at a certain point, and then sometimes I'll have to go to another location to get a piece of paper called a manifest, and then they pretty much get, in this document with a lot of addresses and stuff, and then you're pretty much going all over the place, trying to get all the checkpoints from this document, this manifest, and then also you have to work against the clock, and you have to make it to the end point before the clock, strikes done, before, so that way you can qualify for a spot in the leaderboards, type of thing. It's a pretty cool thing. It's something that I recommend if you're in a city and you love biking, and to look up alley cats or something. I don't know if I'm sure different communities kind of share things by word of mouth, or I know social media can be a powerful thing, but something to check out if that's something interesting to you. But anyway, so I was doing this one race several years ago, and there was this one checkpoint at this one park. It was like a roundabout. We had to mount this contraption, this bicycle. Imagine like two bike frames, standard size, welded together, and they just create this Frankenstein of a tall bicycle. I mean, basically, it's called a tall bike. And this challenge was having to get on this thing and to just do a lap around the park. And conceptually, it seemed simple, but when it came to the practice, I was struggling to get up there. I had to like get on the one of the park benches that the bike was actually leaned up against for racers to come and get it as they arrive, as they come. And okay, and I was able to get on, and then I was able to pedal for a little bit, but then it was just, I fell, and I would catch myself though when I did fall from the tall bike. But when I fell the third time, I tore my ACL, my left ACL. And me being such an idiot and can be stubborn at times, I was like, because the moment when I caught that when I fell and I felt something, that was that moment looking back, like I tore it. But then I was like, and I felt like something kind of gave. But then I was like, I got up after processing and also yelling like, ah, screaming vulgarities and stuff like that, just like, oh, cussing. And then I got up and then I was walking it off to see if I was still good, and everything seemed fine at the moment. And then I basically continued the race in that condition. And I remember, just long story short, then after I finished the race, after that fall, after that accident, my left knee swelled up and I couldn't do much else. I couldn't even walk anymore. And I was just like, I was able to bike up until that point, but that was like done. And so then I had, through the help of friends and family, then had to go through a process of healing my ACL, which for me was the form of surgery and physical therapy. So, so I basically entered my 30s having to recover from ACL reconstruction surgery. And it was something that just, that happened as a result of just that choice that I did. It's like I was I was feeling ambitious to try to do this challenge. And here I am, you know, trying to do something that's out of my comfort zone for sure. And it's just, yeah. And in the one instance, then that in that moment that pretty much made the difference was like either I was gonna say, oh, I'm not gonna try to do this anymore, but then it's like, well, I did anyway, and then the this life situations happened, and then boom, and it just ended up having to I got struck out regardless. So, um, and it was one of those moments for me, like it was a learning lesson, and I had to be able to work with what just happened. I just did this to my physical body, and I had to work through from that point of just like, all right, where am I gonna go from here? And then when, of course, when I made the decision to get surgery, I was like, yeah, I gotta get surgery, because especially when I noticed like my left knee would give when, even when I'm walking or walking laterally, when I was playing pool with my friends, it would shift. And so, and that kind of just put me down a track of just like an opportunity. you know I feel like life can put us in such dire situations, and then there's always that choice that we have of being able to like learn from it, or not, or just experience it without processing it, um, or experiencing and just kind of taking it, so to speak, from just experiencing it, but not looking back, at a certain point, and just like, okay, what was that experience? Like, there's that disconnect from that evaluation, you know. And I think at that time when when this all happened, I'm grateful that I did the work that I have to be able to get myself through this process, because I think that's something that's very crucial that can enable you and I to grow, because we can learn as much as we want, right? Um, we can always there's no limit to how much you can learn, especially intellectual and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, experience is what really matters, and it's from the experience and what we do in the experience, how we carry ourselves in the experience, is what will determine if we grow. We'll kind of it's basically where our growth process is. You can't grow intellectually. I mean, you can. I mean, well, you can grow your knowledge, but in order to truly grow, is you got to have that experience. And that, again, that's why we're back here on this planet Earth. We're back here. Well, that's, well, for some probably, but this is why we're here on planet Earth. And no matter what situation we're in, no matter what we're doing, no matter the context, we are all experiencing life's lessons, our own life's lessons, or else we wouldn't be here to begin with. And the beautiful thing about this is that you can learn and grow, and it doesn't have to be this profound, like, oh my God, like I just had this crazy mystical experience that changed my life. Oh God, and I was never the same. Now, let me not knock that for a moment too. I mean, I'm sure people have had transformational experiences, and I'm not going to underestimate or devalue that whatsoever. But I'm just trying to say that that's not the standard or how people can learn and grow. You can learn something, you know, about yourself from washing dishes. You can have a transformative experience taking a number two, taking a dump, you know, just to kind of give it in perspective of life school is always in session 24/7. Even when we're sleeping, you know, we're still, in a sense, when we're sleeping, we're processing a lot of what has transpired in the day that's gone by. There's this need for us to evaluate. I think is to in program with the college, people that take courses and stuff and are involved, we use the term regroup, where we have to regroup our experiences. You can also say reflecting as well too. It's the same thing, but it's just like a buzzword that we use, and I personally use myself when I'm talking to my spiritual friends, especially who share similar practices as me. We have this common understanding, but there's this need to have to look back on our experiences again. Otherwise, we're just going to come back to just learning and learning things, and learning things great, but we're not applying it, we're not doing anything with it. And so what purpose does it serve? Because at that point we just become mindless consumers, you know and not just like, again, this is to kind of getting into the spiritual mindless consuming. We have the material consumerism, and of course that presents its problems, and that can have its stuff, right? But then there's the spiritual mindless consuming. I'm learning, but it's just like, but do you find yourself in situations that they feel like they keep repeating over and over again? And that's one of the things that I appreciate about life, though, because it's like we won't advance in our curriculum, like say moving from elementary to middle school to high school, college. Think in terms of that, in terms until we've mastered our lessons. We can't just bypass or skip our lessons. That's something I've learned, that's not how it works here, living life on this planet. You got to work through the current lesson that you're at, you know? And that also, something that I've learned too, is that there are, is that I think I mentioned this earlier about the need to have patience, especially with ourselves. I know I'm guilty of being impatient, but it's like I can only grow at my own pace, just like everybody else. Everybody else has their own learning speed, and it's important to keep in mind that doesn't make anybody greater or lesser. But because given the nature of what being in this school, especially when it comes to competition, that's something I've discovered and realized, is that this is a competition school. Looking at it from a spiritual, from looking at it all aspects, materially and spiritually. From like Darwinism, survival of the fittest, to like just looking at, let's say, from the context of like business, for example. There's competition there. But even then, like, it can get very dangerous to try to get into this, like, comparing, oh, like this person's so ahead in life, and because I don't think I think it's a waste of time to try to say, oh, this, or to say, or I think there's a lack of perspective to say, oh, I'm behind in life, oh, I'm ahead in life. Because everybody's experiencing their own life lessons that's custom for, like, you are experiencing your life lesson that's customized just for you. So don't worry about other people's lessons. In fact, be aware and discerning of their lessons, because I've learned that I can take on other people's stuff, their worries, their insecurities and stuff, because spiritually we're sensitive. We can pick up on their emotions and things like that, and internalize and take it on if we're not careful, right? So again, this is like the lessons and stuff. That's how we can kind of, how at least I have to learn in my journey to just be aware, have this awareness. Because ultimately, for the sake of, I think it comes down to, this is like, here in this, in this topic here, of just respecting people where they are, and also meeting people where they are spiritually. I think that's a very powerful skill, because that can enable you, like I know it has enabled me as a practitioner, to meet every single person that I interact with where they are. Again, it's not perfect, right? There's some people that have annoyed me, some people that I felt inferior to. There are people that helped me, I felt some type of way. Just as much as I've experienced people that have helped build me, that elevated me, the whole nine, the good and the bad, the great and the ugly. They definitely experience the fair share of that. But But again, it's just respect. And I think for me, it's just what and how that shows up is just having that awareness and recognizing this person, this soul, is having their own human growth process, their human journey, their own growth process, and their human journey. Just as I, as a soul, am having my own growth process and my human journey. I mean, really, just for me, it just took a perspective, and just also learning my and having this, developing this relationship and building awareness and understanding into myself, that's helped me to do the same for other people. And that's helped me to build a lot more patience with other people. And yet still I can sometimes fall short, again, patience with myself, because I don't know about you, but perhaps I know for me, I can sense into, I know what I could be, I could become. It's just, it's a feeling or some sense, right? That I can't necessarily put a language to at sometimes. Um, but it's just like I get so caught up perhaps of where I want to be in the future, and I don't honor where I'm at in the present moment now. And I think that's something that's truly, really essential to, really important to evaluate and to look at, to examine from where I'm at in the present. Okay, here's where I want to be at this point in life, but where am I right now? And then to kind of take the steps that can connect where I'm at present to future me, where I want to go. And I think something that's very dangerous that the big elephant in the room that I want to address when it comes to this concept, learning and growing, is this idea of mistakes or failure. I know that there are no mistakes in life, there are no failures, in the sense that there merely are just stepping stones. They're just decisions that we made that were not as effective, were not as practical, then were not as, you know, I don't know what else to say. Trying to think of like other ways of saying it that weren't, that weren't so great, and yet this is, but has become a part of our process, you know. But I think it's from those stepping stones that's where we can allow ourselves to truly succeed. Succeeding from the failures, not trying to succeed from perfectionism or trying to get it right. Something how this affects me is when I'm doing this podcast. Sometimes I think like, did I share everything I needed to? Like I'll make some points, and then maybe there might be some stuff that I look back on, like, oh, I didn't talk about this, or I didn't mention this. Oh, there's always something, right? But it doesn't matter, because for me, when I'm working in this podcast, I'm working with my sensitivity and working with my notes and stuff like that, working from my experiences, what I've learned and grown from, and getting into my own flow. It's a beautiful process that's just like, when I'm looking back, I can't judge it, I can't expect it to be perfect, for you, my friend. I can only just, as long as I know I've shared some good things, I don't have to worry about like how every little detail thing, oh, this wasn't like, because it can be very rigid. It can be very, it's a tight feeling, it's like it has to be a certain way, it has to be a certain picture. And it's just like, okay, well, thanks for doing yourself a disservice, because with perfectionism, if I allow perfectionism to rule my life, ultimately I am not gonna live my life. And I think that's one of the most damaging things that we can do to ourselves, especially because we chose to be here in this school to have experiences, to learn and grow from them. Perfectionism is so sorry, I have got some phlegm and my stomach's like rumbling. I'm doing this, recording this around lunchtime. I'm like, oh, of all times I had to do this. But anyway, I'm here. I'm here right now. Again, perfectionism, screw it. Because the more I can release, and the more, if you can start releasing perfectionism and how it shows up for you, and it shows up differently for everybody to varying degrees, the more we can start living our lives. the more we can start giving ourselves permission, because perfectionism strips away my permission to myself to just be, to live, to just do me, you know? Talk about self-pressure and just being so hard on myself. And, I've already picked up a lot of those stuff from my first 7 years. I'm at a point now, it's like, I need to, I've undone a lot of it. And I'm still working on undoing a lot more when it shows up. And that's something that I would want for other people to experience. Is just to be able to live their best life, and I think when it comes to mistakes, quote unquote, embrace them as stepping stones, because those are the keys to actually help unlock a more fulfilling life. Because at times we need to be out of our comfort zone. It's good to be comfortable, and but comfy is dangerous. Because again, that's comfy is it goes against all of our intentions for even being here to begin with, much like perfectionism. It goes against our intentions. We all came here to expand and grow and evolve, to expand our sense of freedom as a soul. and and I think also this perfectionism thing also will make people an opportunist, where they're just sitting on the fence, where people are just watching their life go by. You know, but I think it's important to consider for a moment. And again, this is easier said than done, mind you. And I recognize this, and I can know where I have my experience wise, my little challenges. But at least I can step back, and I've done the work, the awareness to say, like, as a soul, as a spirit, you and I have nothing, everything to gain, nothing to lose. All the things and stuff like that, it's all that the human experience is limited to the physical body, but there's no restrictions to our spirit. And there isn't, only in thought, only in our belief system, which we can change at any moment, like that, a snap of a finger. And that's the thing that I also want to shed light on, to give hope, is that if you find yourself banging your head against the wall, or you find yourself not in the best path, and this, you know, and I want to validate those feelings, because again, it's like you're right to feel whatever you feel about how, where you're at, and especially, if you're not at the place where you want to be. But there's always an opportunity to change that trajectory, to go in a better direction. This morning when I was waking up, I can't remember. I was like, it was something that I was just kind of like in and out of sleep and then awakening state. And I remember I was like saying to myself, like, all right, a new day, I'm here. A new day, a new chance, a new opportunity. And I think that's a very important outlook to have when it comes to looking at routines, and why the systems of being on this planet in the form of routines is so beneficial, and it's there for us. Don't let the routines, don't fight the routines, let them help you. Oh, the new day, awesome. A new day to be able to do, to live a more fulfilling life, to be the better person that I was yesterday. Another more reason why not to worry about mistakes, because it's like there's always opportunity to do better. But it's only when getting caught up in the past, or allowing the past to define us, is where troubles will come up. The past contributes to where we are, but it doesn't define us. It doesn't define you or me as a soul, mind you. More than that, those are just things that's happened in our storyline. That's our human storyline, and that's it. And what we do with that in the present moment, in some sense, can dictate where we're going to go. And that's why it's important that to evaluate and regroup our experiences, so that we don't recreate our past into our future. Because then that creates that, again, learning, but is there much growth? Recreating the past and just bringing it into the future. So for someone that hasn't also, if this doesn't address a need within yourself to evaluate your day, evaluate your experiences, I hope that this does. And you don't have to go about it all crazy or super. And I say this because from my experience, one of the things I get caught up when I'm evaluating and reflecting on my day is that I can take myself too serious, man. I'm like, all right, let's just keep it light, simple. What are the highlights? What did I accomplish today? What are my highlights? Anything I learned today? Any aha moments? Any inspirations or messages I got from my guides? Little questions like that that I run myself through. I actually did made some progress in refining it and made it more simple because I was just like getting too intellectual, getting so freaking serious about it. And that's another thing too, as well too, is that this growth. And I think I mentioned it before. It was like, but in this example I just shared, was like I was kind of putting the force in the growth. Just can't do that. One way or another, I had to learn that. It's like I can't just force my own growth. It happens at its own slow pace. So I'm telling you, man, there's always this. I'm always reminded, man. Every time it's like, okay, I can't rush myself. I can't rush my growth. You know, um, but again, it's like but this is what's helped me be able to work better with people because it's like it really helps me kind of expands my picture into something bigger. Like, oh shoot, it gives me a deepened understanding, man. Like it's just I can only just talk about it from just like how it feels to me and like just my experiences. And if you can relate with this from your experiences and and not just an intellectual idea or concept, you're in a good place too. And if you can, honestly, it's a good thing to just this key concept that's helped me to understand and help better work with people. Like I said it before, and I'll say it again. Um, and and here's another thing too that I wanted to just share is that related to this concept, this foundation, the I came here to learn and grow foundation. Give me one moment as I take a sip of my water. All right, back into it. Um, Everyone has something to teach and someone to learn from. And that's one of the beautiful things and part of why this school is so beautiful because we're not just here by ourselves. We have other people and physical bodies, and we also have spirits on the other side. This beautiful, dynamic, interwoven, this interaction between worlds and within worlds that that happens dynamically in the present moment, right? and and I think that's such a beautiful thing, and I think that's why in this school there's tremendous opportunity to really accelerate in your own growth, to really accelerate being the better version of yourself because of the people here and their wisdom and to our teachers and mentors and stuff like that. And a beautiful thing that I've learned about and a humbling thing that I've learned about when it comes to teaching is that you don't need a doctorate, you don't need a master's degree, you don't need a certification or a license to teach somebody. Because let me tell you, friend, if you were to talk to me right now, if we were having a face-to-face conversation, I bet you 100, 1,000, $1,000,000, I'll double down on this. You can teach me something about myself. I don't care who you are. You can teach me, Alvin, something about myself. And that's an awesome thing and that's a humbling thing to just have an awareness of. And I've learned anything from like observing children to, you know, observing the students I worked with at my previous job at a middle school, to even observing people who are out in the streets. It's just like, and I think having that observer state of mind, that observing, being the observer, is what's helped me enable to allow others to teach me about myself. And of course, there are people that teach me about the game, understanding the game, life on planet Earth, understanding the mechanics of how things work, from businesses to how math works, how science works, physics works, all that stuff, all this mixture of everything of learning. But the important learning that matters most is what has to do with ourselves. We're here to in a lot of sense to discover ourselves, in other sense, to rediscover ourselves. And that will continue to happen throughout our lifetime while we're here. If you haven't thought about this or considered this, I strongly urge you to think about this for a moment. Because I've heard about through podcasts and people who are in their later years who are understanding, who are actually getting this, who are realizing this. Like, oh shoot, learning to expand and grow into the being their best version of themselves. Like people from various spectrums, wherever they are in their lives. But particularly, I'm paying attention. I want to shed light on those who are in their later years. People we consider to be wise because of their experience here on this planet. The they have the most years here, and they're talking about things that that I'm sharing on and talking about here, and especially related to this spiritual key foundation. I am here to learn and grow, especially again when it comes to just our relationship with ourselves. And we have all the help necessary to do that from other people in our lives, and our spirit guides there as well too. And I think also, if you're someone that's feel like you're meant for something more, I just want to tell you, go for it. You have something to give. Don't do yourself a disservice by buying into the excuses or imposter syndrome and all this stuff, this, and that. You have something to offer. From a fundamental understanding to just a reality, I say this. You have something to offer the world to make it a better place. Each and every single one of us does. But I want to spotlight and say you have something to give. Don't let those excuses or comfiness stop you from doing just that, my friend. And it's just this beautiful, and I guess to be able to wrap up this episode, I think it's just a beautiful thing to just get into this giving and receiving that happens with ourselves and others. It's like the phrase, it's like the saying, I give to you as I give to myself. I give to myself as I give to you. And it's just this beautiful, just this giving that happens all around. The gifts that are present everywhere, right here, right now. And why not open yourself to it all? As long as we're here on this planet, I want you also to think about this. We're always practicing. Even surgeons are always practicing. No matter how many years they have under their belt, how much experience, they are still practicing. No one's perfect. And even those who are considered masters in their crafts, who are good at what they do, can still make mistakes. Like I'm pretty good, like I feel pretty good and confident on my bicycle, and I can do cool tricks and stuff when I'm riding on it because I feel so comfortable, secure, I've done the work. And yet I can still have my humbling moments when I fall flat on my freaking, well, not literally, I hope not. No, I would try to avoid that. Where I can just fall on my butt from doing something stupid or silly. I'm like, how did I fall from that? You know, it's so please be easy on yourself because we're all practicing. Again, no one's perfect, and it's not about this. Again, please erase that from your mind because the more you do that, the more you can eliminate that perfectionism. The more you give yourself permission to live the life and to embrace everything that it has to offer you. Like I know I'm working on and practicing embracing it, my life and what it has to offer me. The rich dark chocolate of life. I'm just thinking here. The podcast hasn't ended quite yet. But yeah, so I think that's a pretty much a good spot to end it at. Just all of this to say is that we can live the best quality of life that we can that's available to each and every single one of us while thriving and having just an awesome time here, you know. We can have all that for ourselves. There doesn't have to be this great sacrifice or some sort of suffering that has to happen for us to truly thrive. Because I think when it comes to truly thriving in this world, there can only be win-win, especially when it comes to the spiritual world, when it comes to God, spirit, there's only win-win. And if you're about that life, I salute you, you know, and I respect those that don't, or at least as far as like for where they are, All right, if you don't want to be that way, okay, fine. But they're only winners. We can only be winners if we but allow ourselves to. Only the only idea of losers they are is just in. I mean, the only way to truly lose, if to put in perspective, is just giving up, not even trying. But even if you try, even just a little bit, that goes a long way. The effort, no matter how small it may feel, any effort is something. But at the end of the day, in all of our journey, we're all at different places, different understanding, awareness, patience, different levels of all types of things, organizations and stuff. We're all gonna make it in the end. And I believe that from the perspective of having worked with my guides and having them teach me, and having others as well too. And some mentors I've had, spiritual mentors, that everybody's gonna make it. Nobody's doomed to fail. Nobody, at least nobody, is doomed to suffering or think of the worst case scenario. Because reason why is because it comes back, and I'll talk about this in a future episode. It has to do with our innate free will. We'll all make it eventually. You'll make it eventually. Trust that. If nothing else, have hope. No matter what, everything's going to be all right. And we'll end it there, my friend. This has been another episode of Spiritual Engineered. I appreciate your precious time and attention. And I hope you got something out of it, friend. I'm your host, Alvin Cepeda, signing out. And as always, take care, my dear friend.